Hi, my name is Alyssa and I am an occupational therapy assistant. And this is Brittany, our patient, who has recently suffered a stroke. And the results of her stroke has left the left side of her body hemiparesis, so she has left-sided weakness. And we are going to be doing some passive range of motion today. And the passive range of motion is going to be to help her muscles so they don't deteriorate any further. And we're just gonna make this video for her family so that they can at home be doing these passive range of motion techniques in her upper extremities. So her shoulder, elbow, forearm, and hands and wrist, fingers and wrists, just to keep those muscles moving and keep her range of motion as full as possible. And when we're doing the passive range of motion stretches and techniques, we want to stop whenever her body resists any further movement, and then pause there for a little bit and then go on to our next technique from there. So to start with, we are going to be doing shoulder flexion and then shoulder extension. So I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to put it right above here by her shoulder just to stabilize this shoulder joint. And if I squeeze too hard, Brittany, let me know. And do you have any questions before I get started? No. Okay. And then at all times, I want to make sure I can be seeing her face and asking her questions just in case something hurts or we pull a little bit too hard. So right hand over here by the shoulder to stabilize this joint. And then my other arm is going to be underneath, and I want to support her forearm and her upper arm along the way. So the first we're going to be doing is shoulder flexion, and I can feel a little resistance right here, so I'm going to stop and I'm going to pause, and I'm not squeezing her shoulder, I'm just stabilizing that joint. And then shoulder extension, so here we can bend the elbow a little bit and then pull back for extension, pause, and we want to do this about 5 to 10 times depending on how she's feeling. How does that feel? Good. Okay. So I'll do a couple more here, just shoulder flexion. I'm stabilizing her left arm. And shoulder extension. And we'll do one more of these. And then I want to practice good body mechanics too along the way. So I'm going to use my knees to bend and go back here. All right, next we have shoulder abduction, which is up away from the body, abduction, and then adduction back towards our body. So again, hands in the same place. I'm stabilizing her arm up for abduction. Then I'm going to just kind of squat down for adduction. And again, 5 to 10 times. Let me just pause for briefly here to get a good stretch in. And then down, adduction. And then back up, we'll do one more. And then once more. All right, and then next we have horizontal shoulder adduction. So we're adding to the body, and then away, abduction. Hands in the same spot, my right hand. Again, I'm stabilizing this left arm, and I want to pivot as I do adduction, and pivot away as I do abduction. Adduction and abduction. Let's do one more. Adduction and abduction. Good. All right, next we have external and internal rotation. So this time I'm going to take my right arm and go underneath her bicep here. And I'm still stabilizing this shoulder joint, but it's just going to be easier for my body mechanics to hold underneath here to get a full range of motion in. So we'll do external and down for internal. external and internal. I'm still stabilizing that shoulder joint and giving a nice external and internal rotation. All right, next I'm gonna have a seat for this. You can use a table too to help stabilize her arm, which might be a little easier for some people. Next, we're gonna focus on her elbow. We're gonna do elbow flexion and elbow extension. So we're gonna turn her palm up and we're gonna do flexion, elbow flexion, and elbow extension. And I'm stabilizing her upper arm with my right hand. And then I have a solid grip on her forearm to stabilize it. So flexion, and then extension. We'll do one more. Pause for a little bit. And then extend. Pause again. Next, we're going to focus on her forearm. So I'm going to take my right arm and stabilize this shoulder and her upper arm. And supination is when it's kind of like she's holding a cup of soup and her palm is facing up toward the ceiling. And then we just rotate her forearm, palm facing down for pronation. Pause for a little bit. Rotate up for supination. And then back down for pronation. All right, next we are going to focus on her wrist. And again, I'm still stabilizing this arm. And we are going to go up to extend her wrist and down to flex her wrist. Good. Wrist extension and wrist flexion. And again, 5 to 10 times, depending on how she's feeling that day. She might be a little fatigued and want to do only 5 reps, or she's feeling really great that day and would like to do 10. So just depends. All right, next we're gonna rotate her ulnar and radial deviation. So ulnar is the pinky side and radial is the thumb side. So if we curve in for radial deviation and curve back out for ulnar deviation. Radial deviation, ulnar deviation. Still supporting this arm. All her weight is on my right arm. Radial and ulnar. Great. Next we have a couple finger techniques. So the first is MCP flexion and extension. So just along this line right here, this finger line, joint line, I'm just gonna flex those fingers, just these fingers, flexion, and then back up for extension. Flexion and extension. Get a nice stretch on those, on all 4. Flexion and extension. All right, next we're going to focus on the IP joints. So we have joints here and in the middle. So the tip top of the fingers and in the middle. And we can do all of those at the same time. We'll do a flexion, just curve around. And we can see on the side here, we have all her fingers curved. for flexion, and then we can just pull them back out to extend and get a good stretch on them again. So flexion, curve around, tuck those joints in, pause, and then extend back out. And we'll do that one more time. Flexion, and extension. All right, and last we're gonna focus on her thumb. So I'm gonna turn her hand over, her arm over, and her thumb joint, we're gonna go up, abduction, abduction, and then down, adduction, so adding back into the body. And that just gives a nice stretch right along this joint right here in her thumb. Abduction, and adduction. Abduction and adduction. All right, do you have any questions? No. All right, and then these can be done at home by any family member to get some good passive range of motion stretches in for Brittany so that she can keep up her muscle tone and range of motion. Thank you.